Hey roommates. Hello, hello. Good evening. Happy Wednesday. Hey y'all. Evening. Hey y'all. Good evening. Come on in, y'all. Y'all know me in this comment section. Don't get along. I mean, of course, I love you all, but it gives me a hard time every week. I'm trying to figure out a way, guys, to, oh, there it goes. I'm trying to figure out a way that I can continue to interact with you guys without having this laptop. And it's so many tools. There's so much stuff out here that I could be using, like teleprompter type stuff, and that's all good. But I still want to be able to interact with you guys. And so I feel like Instagram is going in and out on me. Hey y'all. Hey Brown Fox. For some reason I can't access, make sure to do not disturb is on. Hey y'all. Hey Facebook. What's up, what's up, what's up, y'all? Okay. We should be good. For some reason, like as I hit the refresh button over on Instagram, is the Wi-Fi on? I see that the Wi-Fi is on. Maybe swipe down and take the Wi-Fi. Facebook, thank you for being patient. Y'all always pretty good about let me refresh, about being on and me being able to see you all's comments without it being any issues. And so okay, Brown Fox, can you I see the numbers growing, so I think we cooking with grease. Hey y'all, good evening. Welcome. Y'all, it has been a long day, okay? A long day, but talk about just commitment and just being intentional, roommates, okay? Intentional about showing up and being here with you all as we plan to be together, right? Weekly. And so I had a meeting until 6 o'clock. And then I had Phoenix's basketball game tonight. And so that's why I was like, you know what? Let me push our start time back to 8 because 7:30 just wasn't going to cut it, okay? And so, hey, player Ant 39, how are you? I think that's my cousin Anthony. Though sometimes y'all names catch me off guard, but I think that's my cousin Anthony. And so, yeah, y'all, it's been a long day. So thank you guys for waiting on me and sticking beside me, okay? I definitely appreciate that. And hey Facebook, happy belated birthday, cousin. I told you happy birthday on your birthday. So happy birthday, Nicole. I hope you enjoyed. What's up, y'all? So tonight we're going to talk about trauma bonding, okay? We're going to talk about trauma bonding, y'all. And before I get all off into it, because y'all know we got to get to our Bible reference of the day and all of that good stuff. But before we get to it, tell me this. When you hear the term trauma bonding, what comes to mind? How would you define that? Hey, y'all. Hey, what's up, Sister Carmen? That's my girl there. I get excited when I see you. Hello. And so when you think about trauma bonding, guys, tell me what comes to mind for you all, okay? And so I'm going to I think I see the comments there. All right, and so I'm gonna be going back and forth between Facebook and Instagram because y'all, y'all be getting me. So think about that. Think about trauma bonding and what does it mean to trauma bond. Hey Raquel, love you, Paul. I'll be missing you, girl. And so think about what does that mean for you all, trauma bonding. And so we're gonna go ahead and jump on in because that's just the thing to do, honey. We got stuff to do. Okay. So, hey, Ethy. And so let's just start here, right? Tonight's conversation, right, about trauma bonding. I'm gonna put a back end to that as well, right? And so trauma bonding happens and occurs, guys, through some type of shared experience or some type of shared situation, something that, I can identify with you through that, right? And so think about that. And again, just drop it in the chat. But I'm going to tell you this conversation and the intention behind this is for us to understand this, that who's ever mistaken closeness for compatibility, pain for partnership, and familiarity for family. One thing we really have to be mindful of when we think about trauma and trauma bonding with people, and I'm going to break it down, I'm going to define to you guys exactly what it is. But sometimes we're not connected because we are aligned with one another, okay? Sometimes we're connected simply because we are wounded in some of the same places, and we can identify with each other on that front, okay? And so usually once you heal, that connection is probably roommates. Not gonna last because as we heal, right? We always talk about that journey of healing. As we heal, we learn to I get distracted by y'all comments. As we're healing, we learn to let some of those things go in our past. And I know it's easier said than done. And people go through their own journeys and their own processes, right? And so tonight we're going to kind of talk about how those trauma bonds form, and also how and why they don't last, because it's so much behind why we met each other, why we bonded and carried on in a relationship based off a set of circumstances or a set of trauma, versus how our relationship developed as we heal and how that looks differently, right? And so I'm gonna give us a Bible verse, guys. I'm gonna jump in like we normally do. And so John 15:2, it tells us that every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes so it can bear more fruit. And basically what that is saying is that sometimes God will cut off connections so that we can grow without contamination. And now y'all know that's a word, okay? Because many of us get stuck in our old habits. And well, let me back up. Many people want to hold us hostage to our old stuff, right? And so in those spaces where we once were broken and we're fighting to come up out of those places, those are the places you have to fight your way out of, because God wants us to grow, but he don't want us to grow contaminated. Okay, if that makes sense. And so those contaminated connections, they really don't align with your purpose and with your growth. And so that's what we're going to explore tonight, right? And so John 15:2, that's a good word for us to get started. But before I jump in, I got some people. Anthony, you got good talk. I love when you chime in, Anthony. I love when all my roommates chime in, but Anthony, he be coming from a good spot, all right? So he says that project people, and I would just say certain people, he's saying project people, okay, comes to mind for him. Some people still think we are in the hood and feel the need to take on grown people issues. It makes no sense to him, okay? I mean, it's all about mentality, right, roommates? It's all about mentality, and it's all about mentality, and we have to know where we are, and that's where, as we grow through the things that we go through, that's where we start to be able to identify certain things and certain patterns, and we start to disconnect, right? The connection is what the connection is, and we're going to talk about that. We finna jump right on in there. But, you know, y'all know I like to give the yin and the yang. I like to identify, you know, where the issue may be, and then we talk about what it takes to come up out of those situations, right? And so let's define, right? That's what we do up over here. Let's define what is a trauma bond. Okay, I need a little water. It's so, you know, it's so cold outside, and then we have to turn our heat up. And the heat is so dry, y'all, so bear with me. All right, and so you guys can tell me what is a trauma bond. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead on and define it, child, because y'all know we got to keep it moving. Okay, so a trauma bond is not love, okay? Let's grab that myth and throw it on out the window, okay? It's not loyalty. And it's not divine connection. And now I just told you guys about that, right? It's not, when it's not in alignment with where you are and where you want to be, it is not a divine connection. And that doesn't just go for a person. That also goes for a circumstance or situation like your job. Like, you have to know when your time is up in certain situations, roommates. And so sometimes we share and form these connections based off one set of mentality, one set of where our hearts may be. But then, honey, it's okay for you to flip the script, especially if you're growing through your stuff, okay? A trauma bond is a connection formed through shared pain, not shared purpose, okay? And so what do I mean by shared pain? Right now, me and you are being cheated on by our gas, okay? That's not my situation, but that could be something that we can trauma bond about, right? Another thing is about how does shared pain form. You know, people can have a dislike for the same person. So you don't like Susie and I don't like Susie, and so we are going to connect so that we can, you know, do whatever it is that we need to do to go up against Susie. Okay? You got to be very careful with that, though. You got to be very careful, okay? The relationships is sustained by emotional highs and emotional lows. Baby, life is a roller coaster. We know that very much so to be true, okay? But I'll tell you this. You know, there comes a time in all of our lives where we have to get to a place where even if the environment is roller coaster-ish, we have to build a foundation for ourselves that is going to change the narrative of how it is we're going to proceed in our lives, no matter what the environment is conducive of or holds. Right? You have to make the conscious decision for your mind, your heart, your body, and your spirit to choose to be okay. All right? I think I lost Instagram again. Phoenix, maybe you can come check it out, but we got to keep going. Okay? And so what that looks like is that we may share some of the same pain and or painful experiences, but the fact that we've connected, it's just honestly not, it's what's the purpose of it, right? because we have to be very mindful, roommates, and that's why I said that. Like, you know, anything that is God and of God, like there is no coming up against that with negativity and pain and things like that. And so we have to be very careful how we project our pain and how we express our pain. Because if you plotting behind the scene to come up against people, that's just not a good look. That's just not good for anybody. And so we have to be extremely careful how we navigate in our pain. We really, really do. Okay. Hold on. I got some comments. And so let me go see. Hey, my baby, Kalila and Crystal. I don't know which one of y'all behind that camera. I mean, that account. I love y'all though. Okay. So Anthony is saying when we were young, living in the projects, we needed each other for survival. Some hasn't gotten past that trauma. You're right. I mean, being in survival mode is really not a stable foundation. Remember, we were just talking about, you know, stability. If your environment does not nurture you and provide for you the stability that you need, want, and yearn for, then you have to create that stability for yourself. Okay, Mickey, what does that look like? That may mean leaving the group chat, literally and figuratively. Okay, that may mean you have to get up and get out and align yourself and surround yourself by the things that you are wanting in your life. Now, y'all know I could go on and on and on about just like switching your environment, because that is an ingredient to the recipe, right? But also, you know, it's really honestly not rocket science. Hey, Audrey, love you. All right. What else are trauma bonds? We just talked about those emotional highs and lows, right? I remember when I think about the relationships, it make me do exactly what you guys just physically saw me doing while I thought about it. Because it's some relationships that come to mind for me that I know for a fact that being in that person's life and that person being in my life for the season that we were in each other's lives, it was straight up off shared pain. Straight up off shared pain. There was no alignment. There was no purpose. And there was so many emotional highs and lows. Like, I was into it with this person too much, you know, for this person to be a friend or whatever. And so you got to watch those connections where you're on this roller coaster constantly. Like, being connected to the person doesn't bring you joy. It doesn't bring you peace. It doesn't bring you clarity. It doesn't nurture growth. It doesn't ever show up as support. In those environments, if you don't get those things, you find yourself trauma bonded over the things that are negative and toxic, roommates, okay? Trauma bonds are a cycle where chaos feels normal. Whew. Talk about survival mode. Like when I was going through some of the things that at the time I felt like I had no control over, you know, because you're growing up in the situation, or you are with a person because they're helping you, you know, so in some instances you feel trapped. And so it's not that you don't have options, but sometimes you really don't. Sometimes we have to stick it out, right? Well, first of all, we got to get these lessons. Now, these lessons come with heartache. These lessons come with pain. These lessons come with, you know, trauma. But these lessons also come with breakthrough, clarity, right? Closeness to God, attaining favor, you know. And so we have to just stick it and thug it out, you know, but try your best to also be working on, y'all know I'm always talking about an exit plan, child. And so create and figure out your exit route, okay? And then a trauma bond is the closeness requires you to stay unhealed to keep it alive. And that's a word. Hey, sister. Hey, Deshaunette Hawkins, love you so much. And so, guys, that's a word. The closeness requires you to stay unhealed to keep it alive. AD, me and DeShanette, we met through a mutual person. And baby, when I tell you our relationship has flourished and that other one has just, you know, have it didn't survive. There was a lot of toxicity there. And as you're healing, you only want to grow with people that, again, I just named all of those wonderful things, right? That bring you joy, clarity, that support you, all of those things. We have a right to those things, guys. You know, it is not a privilege for you to get up and choose the things that you foundationally desire. Let me tell y'all something. I am living a dream. And I'm not talking about material things. I'm not talking about material things. So I don't want you guys to get it misconstrued. I'm living a dream simply because for the first time in my life, I have more clarity than I've ever had. And so, you know, with more clarity, you gain better discernment. You know, you understand what it is, your purpose is. You figure out where you are aligned in places and spaces, right? And you don't seek approval. Like, I'm, for the first time in my life, you know, it's been extremely, man, 2025, it's been a few years, but 2025 has been so revealing and so refreshing and so hurtful and so joyous, right? It's just so yin and yang, guys. And that's why I talk about, yes, the struggle is real. Yes, you're going to go through, but that's the part, right? You're going through. You don't get stuck, okay? And so when we're trauma bonding, the relationship thrives as long as both of the people stay in survival mode. You said survival once, Anthony, but I already knew I had survival written out a few times, right? And so that survival mode is nasty work, as we be trending and saying. It's just survival mode. It's a different life out here. It is a different life out here. You do not have to be in survival mode. And again, guys, I'm not talking about finances because the finances are what they are. But I'll tell you this, and this is what I tell anybody that's trying to elevate financially. You have to step outside yourself, and you have to bet on yourself, and you have to put yourself out there. Apply for the positions that you qualify for, meaning you have the credentials or you have the experience. Apply for those jobs even if you feel like, you know, you're not going to get it. Now, of course, we don't want to go applying for the president, for the POTUS, right? And, baby, we ain't got certain credentials or certain experience. Now, we already know what we dealing with in a POTUS. So, honey, the credentials ain't that much, but I'm talking in general for everything, okay? And so we have to be mindful, but we have to set ourselves up. So when it comes to a job or your entrepreneurial endeavors, you have to just put yourself out there on a limb. I posted a reel today. It's in my stories. I posted a reel earlier that said, if you failed, congratulations. Like, because most people won't even try. Some people really just, like, we just don't know. None of us know. I think if God gave us a true glimpse into what is going to happen, even if we get the end, if we reach the end goal of whatever we going after, but he showed us all the alligator ponds and dark valleys and uphill battles that we will face, that we'll all be like, nope, I'm good. We gonna turn around. So that's why we need to understand, roommates, y'all, that we have to understand why, you know, who we are and who we want to be and align ourselves in those places and spaces. I'm telling you, manifestation is real. Shout out to my girl, Misha B, because that's the title of her book. You know what I mean? But manifestation is real. The Bible tells us that, right? And so, hey, sister, good evening. And yes, and you'll get through, right? I mean, when you're passing through something, you're passing through. Okay. And so Instagram, I'm just gonna have to end up, and maybe it's just not showing on my screen, because it looks like somebody's on there. Tasha, can you hear and see me? I hope so. And so yeah, y'all. It's the moments that when we start to outgrow spaces that bonds start to break. If you are trauma bonded with someone, or if you've ever trauma bonded with someone, guys, if you started to grow, if you started to elevate, if you started to develop more spiritually, if you get closer to God, baby, it'll get quieter and quieter and quieter. Because the more you work on yourself, the further removed you become from the things that other people are not working on. That's why it's extremely essential to surround yourself with like-minded people, so that you are able to feel the fruits of your labor as you're working towards doing and being a better version of yourselves. You know, I hear a lot of us say all the time, it's me versus me. And that is a great mentality to have. But if that is truly your mentality, you need to have a dog mentality in that. And what I mean by that is that you put those blinders on and you don't let no noise, no light, no nothing distract you from you. And I'm telling you, that's going to lead you to a better place. And I don't mean a physical place. I mean, that's going to lead you to a happier place. That's going to lead you to a more peaceful place. That's going to lead you to a place of solace, where you're able to be quiet and it doesn't bother you. When you shut your body down, roommates, and you can't shut your mind off, you're living in some sort of chaos. And remember, we just talked about a moment in trauma bonding. There are things that is happening that, you know, them endorphins for one another is so strong that, you know, if you guys are not butting at the heads, it doesn't even feel like love. It's not translating to love because there's no chaos there. Baby, listen. I used to prepare myself and ground myself. This is so sad. I used to prepare myself for chaotic situations. I used to know that I'm about to enter a room and know that there would be certain people there who are triggering for me. And I used to ground myself and try to prepare myself to enter into those chaotic environments. But when you are able to rest your body, your mind, your soul, and don't get me wrong, my mind is always going in some capacity, but it's going with growing. Like, my mind is always on business. It's a good problem to have. I'm just saying. That's a good problem to have. So my mind is always on business. So when I have to tell my mind to be quiet, it's just like, come on now. All right. It's something. Oh, it's fine on IG. Thank you, Tosh. I appreciate it. Well, I can't see y'all comments, and it's making it seem like it's glitching over there. So hopefully it's good. But when you find, that peace that you're looking for, roommates, you're going to be able to shut that mind and that body and that mind off by simply telling it. There's power in of life and death. There's power of life and death in the tongue. And so we have to, be intentional about how we speak to ourselves, how we speak over ourselves, and the things that we're manifesting in our lives. Let all of that other stuff go, okay? Because people, okay, I told you guys, once you've healed, the bond will it's gonna wither. Okay, it's definitely gonna wither. It's gonna go away, and suddenly there's no foundation. There's no foundation to stand on. Roommates, you guys tell me. I mean, come on now. You guys tell me. Have you ever been in a situation where you bonded around some sort of trauma, some sort of pain, and then the moment that you started to shift in everything, that relationship just didn't have no foundation to stand on because you guys are losing commonality. You're shifting from pain to purpose. And they stand in pain and turmoil, right? And so you're able to shift the mindset and you're able to shift your perspective with that, okay? All right, cool. And so why do you think roommates, what are some of the reasons that people form around, right? Form bonds around, right? We already talked about survival mode, but it's also a few more reasons, okay? So you guys can drop it in the chat. A shared crisis, right? We survived the hurricane together, okay? We survived, you know, people will bond around crises, okay? Shared family dysfunction. Girl, your family crazy, man crazy too, okay? Girl, let's be friends and try to figure it out together, okay? A tough season. Tough seasons will draw you near to people, right? Remember, these are the reasons that trauma bonds form. In a minute, we're going to talk about why trauma bonds don't last, okay? Because baby, it's a flip to everything, okay? Grief, loss, and instability will cause us to trauma bond. High stress environments like work and ministry will cause us to trauma bond. Family ties, I'm seeing in the chat. Poverty, struggle, and survival situations will make us trauma bond. So, to Anthony's point a moment ago, us growing up together in public housing, right, aka the projects, us growing up there, it was some things we had to trauma bond around, right? Many of us was in survival mode, right? There was a similarity with the socioeconomic status, so we were bonding through struggle. That's why it was so easy for us to share so easily. See, now all of us nowadays, honey, we all got our own. We can't knock on nobody's door for no sugar, no butter. See, I grew up in that type of environment. And so what happens is when we are on the struggle bus together, we're more likely to feel aligned and we're more likely to share in that experience and share things to try to essentially get each other past those situations, okay? And so these situations, yes, they do connect us. So we don't want to minimize the connection because the connection happens, and these are the reasons that the connection happens, right? But also, it's not true compatibility, guys. There's no substance outside of that pain. There's no substance outside of that shared struggle. There's no substance outside of the dysfunction, okay? And so I got my girl Drill Sergeant saying that Tina Turner and Ike were wait a minute. Tina Turner and Ike, friends, helped her to learn the ways of Buddhism. And yeah, you spelling it right. Let me see what else she's saying. And that she started standing up for herself. Exactly. Because see, what the Bible is going to teach us is that it's okay to be loyal. It's okay to even be committed to situations. But what is not okay is for you to be used as a punching bag, or for you not to be treated humanely, right? Everybody should be treated just fair and equitably, just period. You know what I mean? We just got to be very, very careful about how we handle people, and also how we fumble people, okay? Because some chaos and some trauma. See, with me experiencing so much in the domestic relation world, right, and domestic violence, see, I started to, and to the point that she's making about Tina Turner and Ike, see, I couldn't come up out of that mindset of certain things until I let certain things go. And it was me getting back in church. But you learn the ways that you should be treating people, and you learn the way that you should be treated, right? I've always been one to pour into other people and to give and give and give just to try to make sure that folks are straight. But sometimes, it's difficult to navigate when you're in it. You did what too, sister? I'm sorry, I'm just over here talking. But so we talked about the tough season. And so these are the reasons that people bond, right? And so what are some of the emotional patterns that are tied. And again, these bonds do set up emotional patterns, but again, they're not healthy connections. And so what does that look like for many of us, right? The reason we bond and stay, right? You feel needed, right? When you're in those traumatic relationships, you feel needed, because remember, we just talked about a moment ago, we're feeding off of each other. We're feeding off of the chaos. We're feeding off of the trauma. We're just too invested. Like, ain't nothing like having a conversation with somebody that can identify with exactly what you're going through. And you don't have to live in a world where people know exactly what you've gone through. You know, I got some newfound people in my life. And when I say new, I'm not talking about yesterday, just over the years, that didn't grow up with me, didn't grow up the way that I did, grew up literally on the other side of the tracks. They don't be knowing nothing what I be talking about. In fact, this is what they be looking at me saying, like, girl, you need to write a book. Okay? And so these are people who have never experienced poverty, right? They never experienced, like, their parents was together, 2-parent households, things that I didn't experience. So it's literally the other side of the track. But what happens is we can work towards, that life, even if it didn't start like that. So generally we build these unhealthy connections because we feel needed, right? We feel seen in our pain. Again, that's that familiarity, right? Being able to understand the dysfunction. We bond through the dysfunction. We feel responsible for the other person's emotional state because now we've bonded, right? So how dare me get well and just leave you behind in your trauma? Now, I'll tell you this. We shouldn't leave people who are struggling if they are wanting to come up out of their struggle. But some people stay grounded and rooted in those things because that's all that they really know, guys. And so you can't bash them for the mindset, but we do need to be working to a shift in the mindset, okay? We stay because we fear abandonment, right? Think about if you have abandonment issues yourself and now you've connected with this toxic person in this chaotic situation, right? And to leave will feel like you're abandoning them. And you know what abandonment feels like. So now you're conflicted because you want, the empath in you wants to stick around because you know exactly what they're going through. But the spiritual you knows that this is unhealthy for you and that you need to do the things that you need to do to, make sure you're okay. That's the bottom line. You have to make sure that you're good. You can't get caught up and stuck in other people. You can help people, but you don't want to get stuck in other people, okay? And then you definitely, a lot of the times we stay in those unhealthy relationships, those trauma bonds, because we are confusing chaos with chemistry. Oh, we just hit it off. Oh my God. Oh, it feels good. Remember I just talked about them endorphins. Honey, them endorphins are just releasing all in your brain and you get this pseudo or fake feeling of pleasure because you're interacting with them. And let me tell you something. This is not just about a romantic partner. I just want to give that disclaimer because we do have, connections with other people that are not romantic, okay? So whether these trauma bonds are situational, roommates, or relational, okay? It requires our broken places to stay broken for the trauma bond to remain strong. So it requires you to water and pour into the chaos because that's the situation at hand, okay? And so, yes, all right. I feel so sad about. Okay, Instagram. I think it's back on. Y'all know y'all my good people, okay? And so, guys, how is it that we're gonna move on? How is it that you become close? I mean, we kind of talked about what our trauma bonds, but how is it that we become close with people that we are and this becomes very specific, right? And so childhood wounds, heartbreaks, abandonment story, toxic environments. And we usually bond over, and remember I was just saying a moment ago how people will bond around people who hurt them. you know, or they believe that hurt them. And that's where, you know, 2 and 3 and 4 will gang up against people. We have to be very careful about trauma bonding around people who we believe that hurt us, because what happens is we're drawing in a crowd of people, but your situation with that person and the other person's situation with that person, yes, it's true, you had a situation with them, but their situation is not apples to apples all the time. Now, don't get me wrong. If you're dealing with somebody with an abusive nature, or somebody that is of a certain caliber, then you kind of can talk about those similarities in your experiences. But again, you don't want to gang up against people, right? And so we're also bonding over what we lack, what we fear, all of that stuff. We talked about that, right? And so what we have to understand is that it is our responsibility to figure out what is going on in our relationships. I'm not keen on pulling other people into my stuff with people. Now, granted, we all talk about the stuff that hurt us. We all talk about situations that we've gone through. But I'd rather wait out, because I just, that loyalty in me and the fact that it was mine and yours relationship, why pull in a third party, right? I mean, because then that's like betrayal. It's one thing if the relationship just naturally fizzle out and that you guys, you know, just figure out this is not for me. But it's a whole nother thing when you go on a smear campaign and you are coming together to bond, to be on a smear campaign against somebody. You know, the Bible tells us, well, 1 or 2 are gathered, you know, so should be God, okay? And so if there's no God in it, disperse immediately. Don't even think about doing it, roommates, okay? And so let me tie in something, right, about trauma bonds, right? And this is from Judges 16. And it's the story of Samson and Delilah, if for my Bible readers. And for you guys who don't know the story of Samson and Delilah, and you guys have heard about Delilahs, even if you don't know the Bible. You know, the Delilahs and, you know, Jezebels and all of that stuff, okay? So Delilah was one of them, okay? And so their connection was trauma-based, okay? And so they were not aligned. They bonded through dysfunction and unmet needs. And so the bond felt strong, y'all, but it was extremely destructive. So much so that it cost Samson his life, right? And so you guys can definitely go read the entire story in the book of Judges, chapter 16. But it's a really good story, because it really solidifies the fact that we have to starve this flesh. Let me tell y'all what fasting is about. Fasting is a covenant between you and God, okay? When you decide to make a sacrifice, for whatever the reason you're making a sacrifice for, to get closer to Him, to hear from Him, to ask for guidance, whatever it is, okay? It's necessary for certain things. But what the Bible tells us we need to fast against are the things that we are weak to. So it's funny, because my pastor was talking about this recently, and he was just saying, like, okay, you fasted because you ain't had a Pepsi in a week. Now, if you drink Pepsis 23 times in a day, and you and you decide that you're not going to have no Pepsis, you know, for health reasons or whatever, please, by all means, do that. Please know that I'm not judging your fasting journey, because it does have to be incrementally, because, baby, it ain't easy, because it's a sacrifice. Okay? And so remember a moment ago I talked about starving our flesh. And so what that means is that, see, the Bible tells us things that we shouldn't do and what we shouldn't be, right? And so it speaks about, you know, things, you know, that puts us in sin, child, okay? And so it's, you know, it talks about drunkenness. It talks about, you know, fornication. It talks about, you know, those multitude of things that we should, you know, when we are making certain sacrifices, we need to do it at a certain level, right? And so just know that story of Samson and Delilah is one of those trauma bonding, trauma based relationships that is really worth reading. Okay, and so when your healing begins, roommates, and we about to transition out. Okay, 6 minutes or so we gonna be done. All right, and so our healing shifts everything in us, roommates. That's why I tell you guys all the time, it's a journey. Things that affect you and bother you today, if you are truly on a healing campaign, you will be able to look back at those things and laugh at them and be like, I can't even believe I was wasting my time and my energy there. And y'all know it because we all have gotten over some hurdles. I don't care how big or how small, we all have overcome some things. So when you start to heal, and those other people that you trauma bonded with, they don't, let me tell you what happens. Okay? The relationship feels uneven. It's no balance. It's no balance. Okay? You hear about being equally yoked. Okay? That equality, right? And so the relationship begins to feel uneven. It also begins to feel uncomfortable. Have you ever been in a relationship that you was just head over heels in that relationship? Again, it could be a friendship, a best friendship, a situationship, a marriage, a baby mom, baby dad situation, just in a situation that you were head over heels in, and you actually, you enjoyed it. But things started to shift, and everything about the relationship became uncomfortable. Every conversation, every decision made or not made, right? When you begin to heal, things and people start to be exposed, right? You start to see, and God starts to reveal the misalignment. And that in and of itself will make you uncomfortable. Because when a relationship lacks purpose and alignment, you really should be asking yourself, why am I here? What are we doing here? And we're not talking about conditions of relationships. We're talking about just literally at face value, right? And so roommates, tell me, y'all gotta tell me, come on y'all. What are some of the things that healing makes us do? What does healing do for us? Whether it's related to a trauma bond or what? What does healing do? Or what has healing done for you? Very specifically. I can start. What healing has done for me is that it has allowed me to accept anything that I've gone through just as a lesson in this life. And it allowed me to gain more wisdom and more clarity so that I don't repeat those same things. Okay, so what does healing say or mean or looks like for you? Okay, so I gave you that. You lose interest in trauma-filled conversations. You know, one of the most cringe-worthy things, guys, is when I watch friends fall out of friendship. It's worse than falling out of friendship with your boyfriend or your girlfriend, your wife or your husband. When you fall out with your girlfriends and the relationship just doesn't last. Okay, we didn't make it. Okay, the relationship was filled with trauma, drama, and chaos. Right? That's a tongue twister, trauma and drama. Okay, cool. But for real, at one point we was connected even through the trauma, and we were able to identify in one another and be of at least a full connection, have a full connection with one another just based off that. All right, we stopped. It allows you to completely release. This is Deshernette. It allows you to completely release without being emotional. Cutting them ties. And my motto is this: if we ain't no longer one, you gave me the scissors to cut it off, because I will give chance after chance after chance. Unfortunately, I was wired to accept disrespect and abuse for many, many years in my life. But what healing does is it allow you to stop tolerating those cycles. It teaches you that this is not where you're supposed to be, that this is not what life and relationships is supposed to be about, okay? You desire accountability over excuses. Again, what are we doing here? We prefer peace over that adrenaline. Remember, I just been talking about endorphins. That's adrenaline, y'all. Now, I ain't no scientist, but I know a little bit about a little bit, okay? And then we choose boundaries over chaos. So remember, I was just telling y'all, I had to go through those journeys of pain. I had to go through those journeys of betrayal, right? So that it could get me to the place where I set boundaries, right? I'm not tolerating that. We're not tolerating that disrespect. We're not tolerating, the things that we used to tolerate. That's gone. And so when you're in those trauma bonding relationships, unfortunately, when you start to set boundaries, it becomes more chaotic, because they feel like, oh, but it was okay. It was cool before you was here. It was cool for us to talk about everybody. You got to be careful with that, y'all. Just be very careful. And so suddenly a bond that felt so comfortable now just feels so constrained. It just feels so hard to endure, right? And so 2 Corinthians 5:17 reminds us that if any of us are in Christ, he is a new creature. Old things pass away. And so basically what that is saying is when we become a new version of ourselves, old bonds can't survive with the new version of you. It just cannot. Old bonds are not going to align or survive. Forget alignment, because we already know the alignment isn't there. It's not, the old relationship is not going to survive the healthier, newer version of you. Because you're going to be looking like, what? No. That looks so ghetto. That looks so foolish. That looks so crazy. Like, no, I'm not doing that. And I don't want to do this with you no more. Right? And so, hey, Monet Lachey. Hey, boss chick girly. And so, guys, with those, how are we breaking those bonds? Okay? So let's talk about, as we're healing, what is it that we need to do to break bonds, to break trauma bonds? We don't stop caring. I don't want us to forget that. You do not stop caring about those people who you were in that relation or in that bond with, right? We're just needing, it's just something about us that needs to be freed from certain things as you're going through, okay? So healing in those trauma bonds, it helps you to realize a couple things. Here you go. It's about to get thick, okay? It shows us clearly that we were never connected. We were coping with one another, okay? We were never truly connected, all right? We were never compatible. We were wounded. We were bonding, right? We were bonding around chaos and pain. Okay, we were never aligned. We were attached for a season and a reason, and we were never growing. I look at some people that I was once really close to who is not really grown in a lot of areas, and I'll be looking at them like I'll be looking at some of my exes like, you still on that? Like, come on now. So you gotta, we ain't growing, but you're learning this as you're healing. You're like, in this relationship, we ain't growing. We just surviving. We surviving off the bullshit. And when the relationship is freed up of that, then you don't have anything. The connection it withers, y'all. It just really does. Okay. When trauma bonds fall apart, and we headed to closing segment. When trauma bonds fall apart, roommates, clarity replaces confusion. You ain't confused. Don't let nobody have you so confused that you stay stuck. Okay? Stability replaces chaos. We've been talking about foundation and stability. That's where we started at. Okay, if you guys are just not joining us, I promise you, you won't be disappointed if you go back to the front, to the beginning of this, because it's real stuff going on. Self-worth replaces desperation. Let's stick a pin right there. Let's stick a pin right there. When you learn your self-worth, roommates, you don't do nothing that remotely looks like you begging, look like you trying to lag on, hang on, tag on. That desperation goes out the window. I know everybody that got to the place in a relationship with a boyfriend or a girlfriend when you finally was like, I don't care what you do. That goes the same way about a relationship that you've trauma bonded in. You know, I was saying this a moment ago, and I got sidetracked because, you know, I be reading comments and I be all over the place. But, you know, watching friends fall apart is really, it's almost sadder than watching a couple fall apart. And I'll tell you why, because you guys know so much about each other. You guys once shared your deepest, darkest secrets. But I'm going to tell you, it's two types of friends in this world. It's a friend that is a person that has integrity. Baby, don't get me started on integrity. But has integrity and move with, and just move still with that integrity despite what has happened to break the relationship up. And so you don't go talking your friend's business at one point you guys were each other listening ear and you guys were each other's point of refuge just as you was working through that pain and that trauma. What y'all got to stop doing is stop going to the internet with y'all issues and y'all problems. We grown as hell. You know what I mean? Like, the kids are going through enough with that stuff. If we were young like them, it'd be real op situations. Some of the stuff I see y'all type and go back and forth and do with one another. It's just really distasteful and disheartening at the same time because, you know, we really have to, it's okay to shift in your relationship if the relationship is not working out. But what you don't want to do is start to publicly bash and harass people. You know, them subliminal posts, we be knowing who they're about. Y'all gotta stop, okay? And then your purpose replaces pain. You know? And so, roommates, I want you guys to be reminded of Amos 3:3. It tells us we can walk together unless, can two walk together unless they agree? And what this is essentially telling us is once we heal, we no longer agree with pain that bonded us. All right? We begin to walk away from things that become or seem impossible. You can't be fighting for a relationship that you guys are in the same boat and one person is rowing and the other person is drilling a hole in the back. That ain't alignment. Y'all don't have the same goals. Okay? All right. And so it ends because things are just really unhealthy. All right? The things we got to also stop doing is stop holding the unhealed version of ourselves. Stop holding ourselves captive to that. It's okay to grow, roommates. Don't feel ashamed about growing. So what? You used to be a prostitute, you know? So what? You used to be an alcoholic. So what? You used to use mad drugs. So what? You lost your children to the system. So what? You went through some times that you probably do feel guilty and ashamed about. So what? The marriage didn't last. Okay, so it's okay. It doesn't matter that it doesn't last, right? But as you're healing that unhealed version of yourself, don't allow that to hold you down. That's where, you know, people who were once, you know, okay with the unhealed version of us, they wanna dismiss the healed version of us by saying, yeah, but I remember when. Yeah, well, that was then. That ain't now. Okay, things are different around these parts. And that's what you got to stand in. Don't let them hold you captive, but you got to start with yourself, because we will accept disrespect, abuse, all of these things when we lack self-worth. Okay? We got to build our self-worth up, guys. All right? You know, the bonds, they begin to break when they were once a part of the survival story and you ain't in survival mode no more. At one point, these people felt like home in your season of brokenness, right? You guys have just simply outgrew each other. But if you my friend, don't use that old version of me against myself when you see that I'm really trying. That's where the immaturity comes in at. Like, stop trying to tear people down. Okay? And then there are going to be moments where no one else saw you, right? They were not there, but the one that was, that you bonded with over that grief, right? They were there, but it's now time for that part of your life to be done with. Okay? And so, we headed to closing segment, guys. And so, the blessing in breaking these bonds, guys, is that when you break trauma bond, when you break away from the chains of chaos, from the chains of toxicities, from the chains of dysfunction, from the chains of abuse, right? From the chain of discontentment. Okay? When you break away from those things, God is shifting you. God is shifting you, so you got to be prepared for the shift, the mindset. Everything got to alter for you to walk into your purpose. Your identity changes. I tell y'all all the time, roommates, if you ain't around me constantly, you don't know me. You don't know me. Who is that, T.I., y'all? You don't know me. Yeah, that part. Right? If you're not around a person constantly, you don't know them. We are ever evolving, ever changing, right? And so we have to be very mindful of that. Stop trying to hold people to the old version of themselves. All right? Our identities change as we come about breaking certain trauma bonds and breaking certain curses and starting to live in our peace and live in our stability and live in the healed versions of ourselves, okay? Our emotional needs evolve. What was able to pacify me just a year ago can't pacify me today. Now, I'm not saying that I'm high maintenance. I'm just saying that I have a short tolerance for things nowadays. I can spot bullshit a mile away, and it's like, please just stay over there. It's cool. We can be surfacey. Like, I know how to be surfacey. That don't mean I love you any less. I can hate it, how you doing, hug you, wish you well, and mean all of that. But it's going to be surface or it's going to be deep with me. It's one or the other. There's really no in between. And you got to learn your audience. You got to learn how to deal with folk. Okay? And the bottom line is this. When you are going through this and you figure that this stuff isn't working, you've learned that assignment has ended. It's no more. That's it. It's done. Okay? And so everybody can't go. I got Nita saying, whoosh, yes. Okay, I got Deshaunette saying, and don't allow them to take you back to that place. That's a wonderful point. Don't allow people to drag you back only for them to say, see, look, didn't I tell y'all she was crazy? Didn't I tell y'all she was this? Didn't I tell you she was that? Nope. Let your character, and I'm gonna do a whole segment on character, baby. Okay, so if you want to join me in that conversation, because I do want to, in 2026, roommates, I want to invite people in, guests in, roommates in, to just have these same discussions. Not just for me to be talking about it, but to have the discussions live. And so if you're interested in something like that and you have a topic of discussion that you would love to be a part of, please just shoot it to me. Trust me, I got us. I'm going to guide everything, and before you know it, that hour going to be over. You're going to be like, oh, that was fun. You know how I know? Because that's what all my guests say. Okay? Cool. All right, and so breaking the bond isn't rejection, y'all. It's redirection. Okay? That's it. That's all. Here's my final segment, and it's just honestly about encouragement, right? And so I want to give you guys these words of encouragement, and we are out of this piece. All right? Y'all been good tonight. Instagram, I know. I think y'all in 2026 too, I'm probably going to go live. Not probably. It's probably going to be just YouTube, y'all. I need to just put all my views in one place. And I know for my non-supporters, you like, I ain't going to view nothing. That's okay. God going to send the strangers to continue to catapult me in this vision that he gave me, okay? And so you can be a part of that. Or not, you know, we gonna keep it moving. But definitely, I always have issues with Instagram, and I want to always be able to tie you guys in. So I'm figuring some things out. I've been figuring it out, honey, since I started it. And so thank y'all for digging it out and riding with me, okay? All right, and so here is the final words, right? So if healing costs you your relationship, friendship, or family closeness, I need you to listen closely. Come close. Listen. Put your reindeer ears on, okay? All right. It is the season. 'Tis the season. I love the Thanksgiving to Christmas holiday season. It's my favorite. All right. So if healing costs you your stuff, your relationships, your closeness, okay, you didn't lose you. I mean, boop, 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 rewind. You didn't lose them, right? You found you. So don't feel bad about losing things and situations and people. That don't mean you no good no way, okay? So when it starts to cost you these things, just know that you found yourself, okay? You didn't break the bond. The healing did, right? The fact that you have healed has changed the bond because you guys now lack commonality. You don't have things in common anymore. You've moved on. You've leveled up, okay? You didn't abandon your past, okay? We ain't erasing the past. We're ecstatic. We're ecstatic. We made it through the past, okay? Because look at the breakthroughs today, all right? So we didn't abandon our past, roommates. We answered our future. And with that being said, guys, I really want to let you know that God is proud of you. And I want to give you my final biblical verse. Okay, it comes from Isaiah 43. Forget the former things. Behold, I am doing a new thing. And what God is telling us is that he isn't asking us to forget the person. He's asking us to release the version of ourselves that needed them. Once we become a new baby, we breaking those generational curses. We're breaking those trauma bonds. We're breaking all of those things. So, again, we're forgetting the former things, but we're not forgetting about the person. We're actually releasing the version of ourselves that needed them. Roommates, we've come to the end of yet another segment. I am thankful for you guys. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for always tuning in, for being supportive. Go and like and share and do all of that good stuff so that people can get the message, because these are messages that our healing community needs, okay? Roommates, I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. Have a wonderful night.